talk about the Panthers. You was right down there in practice when I was in practice. Holla at your boy, talk. And Coley, pipe down, put yourself on mute, and listen to the fellas talk.
Now we get into the Steve's real talk, the Panthers, right? And everything's about Bryce Young there. And, everybody is funny. I talk on social media about Bryce Young, and all the jokes fly. He's small, he's little, all these different things. You've seen him, Steve. It's the reality of he's going to have to do it on the NFL field for people to hush.
He didn't do it in college. He didn't play well in college.
Exactly. He didn't win a Heisman. He didn't win big games and all this.
Didn't see it.
Yeah. So, but clearly he gets in the league and he's too small to play. It reminds me of Devontae Smith. I love Devontae Smith coming out of the draft. Different position. Everybody told me he was going to break. He's too small. He's going to break. It's not going to work. Devontae Smith's been one of the more durable receivers in the NFL since he's been in there. And he's been productive too. He's a great route runner. We're not doing an Eagles talk here, but it kind of reminded me. It has reminded me of that. And so, getting back to Bryce Young, I think that Bryce Young is immediately going to be a top playmaker for this offense. And the big question is what we'll get into is the wide receiver position. Roster without a one. And so who is he going to be throwing the rock to? I'm eager to hear your opinion, Steve, on Jonathan Mingo, because he's the guy that I circle and say, hey, who has the potential to, rocket up to the top of this group? Maybe it's not from week 1, but maybe it's week 9. You start to see him take off. And I watched him and the chemistry that they start to have together, Bryce and Jonathan. And I'm like, this is a guy I can see in November. If I'm looking for guys for bye week fill-ins, if I'm looking for guys who are trying to, even if he's on the waiver wire, that I'm saying who can get hot in the second half of the year, I think Jonathan Mingo is going to be high up on my list, especially if this Panthers offense is starting to fire off.
Well, first of all, I love this transition into it. I agree. We were at practice together, and Bryce Young had a pass batted down.
Yeah.
But also, Andy Dalton.
You know what the first thing you said to me? You were like, Andy Dalton had a pass batted down too.
Exactly. and people say, oh, Steve is always rooting for the short guys. I'm not rooting for the short guys. I play into the narrative of the short guys, but what I root for are people who their body of work speaks for themselves. I get tired of people who are sitting on the couch who haven't played since high school, or who played in high school and played a little bit of college. And so they automatically deem themselves as Mr. Know-It-All. I'm not a Mr. Know-It-All, but I've been around the block a little bit longer than you, and I've been on some blocks that you've never experienced before, right? And so you can't measure a man's heart and his ability and his willingness and his talent based on a person's size, right? You can't say a fat guy can never play this and a short guy can never play that. Just let the young men and let the guys play it out. Bryce Young is not 6'1". I've seen 6'4" receivers not be able to get off jam. I've seen 6'2" quarterbacks not be able to throw. Bryce Young reminds me of Drew Brees in essence of shoulders up and anticipation and knowing his own deficiencies. At 0 to 22-yard area that you're going to go, that's what he does. When I talk about these wide receivers, DJ Chark, he's the fast guy. He's going to press the defense. Jonathan Mingo, he's, I don't know how tall he is because everybody's taller than me, but he's 222 pounds.
Yeah.
And his fluidity is a lot better than what I expected. I thought he was a stiff guy. I'm going to get in and out some breaks. He's very physical. He's very humble. Southern kid who isn't really going to say anything, but he's going to get in your hips a little bit and let you know I'm not no average rookie and you're not going to punk me. So I really love that. He kind of has this, he's going to look at you. You may say something to him, he'll look at you, and you're kind of like, man, it's kind of rough around the edges because he will not respond. He'll just kind of give you the head nod like, okay. He's like one of the kids. He won't say anything, but you know he's saying something about you when you walk away.
Steve, he got the dog in him? Does he got the dog in him?
He has a dog in him, right?
Okay.
But the difference in his dog, he'll bite you. There's some guys who have a bark And that's good. A guy who I don't think he's going to bite you. He's going to bark. And his bark is contested catches. It's Terrence Marshall Jr. Okay. Contested catches. His comp, really watch him in practice, he reminds me, Alshon Jeffries.
Okay.
Not slow, not fast, but he is not an easy guy to cover. That's what it reminds me of. And if you go back and look, he caught a pass over Xavier Woods. It was slightly off target where he could put both feet down. But, bro, he is up at the highest point, and it is beautiful. I don't know who took the picture, but I would get that picture, frame it, so when he's old and when his kids are saying, Pop, you didn't play anymore, he said, yeah, but you ain't never did this, young man. It's beautiful. Adam Thielen, he's going to play in that in the slot a little bit. He's going to move around, and then Mingo's playing the X. Terrence is doing his thing. But the guy that people aren't listening to, that looking at as well, Mingo at 65, he's going to be a guy to watch out for. Shenault, Laviska Shenault, he's going to be a guy that he's improving his route running. He was a gadget guy in Jacksonville in college. I believe he's more than that. He's trying to work on it. He's working on it and wants the ability to show he's not just a gadget guy. He's an all-around football player. And I think this offense with the offensive coordinator, obviously by Frank Wright as the head coach, but the offensive coordinator with Thomas Brown, I think that we're going to be surprised with the quarterback that they have, Bryce Young, that this offense, I believe, could be in the top 20. I'm not going to go out on a limb and, statistically throw a silent bomb at the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to lower it and say my Carolina Panthers will be in the top 20 offense with the explosion and also some of the running backs that they have with Miles Sanders as well.
You think Carolina has a better offense than Atlanta at the end of the season?
I'll say it with my chest, yeah.
I'm just asking. Okay. That'll be a fun one to watch. That'll be a fun to watch.
Well, we got week 1. Bring your popcorn, sucker.
I can't wait. I can't wait. And so I want to piggyback on a couple of things you said there on the receivers. Well, first of all, I'm eager to see how much they run the ball because, talking to Thomas Brown, you mentioned their offense coordinator, they want to be able to establish the run with Miles Sanders. They believe in that offensive line a lot. And so they want to run the ball early to protect that young quarterback. But I do think there's going to be a stage in the season where maybe it's week 2 or maybe it's week 6 where you're like, hey, Bryce Young is that dude we thought he was. So we're going to let him have the keys to the offense in fullness. I think maybe early on you'll see a little bit more, okay, let's ease him in. And then I think at some point it's going to be like, go. And when it goes, I'm eager to see which of those young guys you mentioned steps to the forefront and becomes that guy we're talking about throughout the fantasy season of that's a guy that can get it. You don't think it'll be one?
I don't think it'll be one. I don't believe it'll be one guy because I think they're just too young, right?
Yeah.
So DJ Chark is playing. He's playing in a different position and a different role. Let me rephrase that. He's playing a different role than he played when he was in Detroit and when he was with the Jaguars, right? But what he does have, no matter what the injuries, he's got that speed. He got that get you. He applies that pressure on the defense that you have to worry about. Terrence Marshall, TMJ, he has his ability to be contested catches. So you got a big target. Then you got Mingo, who people don't know what Mingo brings to the table.
Right.
As a pro. You know what he brought to the table at Ole Miss. But you don't know what he brings to the table as a pro, just like you talk about the Eagles or A.J. Brown. You knew A.J. Brown had skills. You knew DK Metcalf had skills. But you weren't sure exactly their true skill set that would translate into the league until they got there. And now you know these are guys you need to watch out for. And I think Mingo continues that trend of Ole Miss wide receivers that you're going to have to pay attention to because you cannot allow them to line up and just press them up and say, hey, I'm going to lock this rookie down. I don't think it's going to be that easy.
Yeah, I talked to some scouts. Oh, sorry, Coley.
Well, no, yeah, go.
Yeah, no, I talked to a couple scouts in the pre-draft process who actually thought that Mingo was more advanced coming out of college than A.J. Brown. which surprised me. Obviously, not saying he'll be A.J. Brown, but where they were both coming out of Ole Miss was something they noted there. You mentioned Mingo and his fluidity. Thomas Brown told me that was the one thing they had questions about. Is he a stiff guy, like you mentioned? And they've been surprised at how fluid he's been as route running. He's not just this vertical threat guy. Only thing about Terrace Marshall, and I know they're high on him. I've heard he's had some inconsistency in practice where he'll have some really high days and some low days as well. And so you need him to be more of a consistent guy if you're going to count on him to be a big contributor. But I know they have big plans for him. And I think you're right, Steve. Maybe it's more of a wide receiver by committee, which I know fantasy owners probably don't want to hear, but that may be the reality in Carolina this year.